Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the previous episode, we started looking at some basic Arabic grammar just to help us in our quest to read and understand Quran. These lessons aren't meant to be any fully blown Arabic grammar, just something to help us, as I said, to just read and understand. In the previous episode, we talked about the components of an Arabic sentence. Today, inshallah, we will start identifying the noun. Basically, see what are the signs or the indicators that you look for in order to identify whether the word you are looking at is a noun or not. Alright, so let's get started. Perhaps the first thing we would need to do is to make sure that we know the harakat, the accents in the Arabic words or in the Arabic language. The first is a fatha, which is a small dash on top of the letter, basically an indication to open your mouth when you pronounce that letter, like fatha ta, like that. The kasra is at the bottom or the underneath the letter as an indication to do the kasra, like kasra t, like that we call kasra, jar or kasra. For the dhamma, it's basically another symbol of a wow, small wow on top of the letter, like dhamma tu. And also the tanween, which is an added noon, only pronunciation, not writing, at the end of the word, like fathatan, kasratin, dhammatun, like that. Now that the harakats are out of the way, again, last episode we learned the three components of a sentence in Arabic: nouns, verbs, and the harf, if you remember. Now let's move on and see how we can identify the nouns. The first sign that the word that you are looking at is a noun is that it has kasra, the indication of kasra at the end of the word. The second sign is it has a tanween, what we call tanween, whether that is a tanween kasr from down of the letter, tanween fath up, or tanween dam. The third sign is that it begins with al, alif walam, al. The fourth sign is that it is preceded by harf, what we call harf jar, not any harf jar, like fi, ila, ala, and so on. The fifth sign is that before the word you are looking at, there is ya that we use to call someone. So these are indications that the word you are looking at is a noun. They are not everything, but they are the main and most common indicators. So a word may have one of them, or two or three, or all of them, and maybe the word doesn't even have any of them. It is still a noun because when you add one of these indicators to the word, it accepts it. It provides a meaning. And don't worry, we have some examples that we will go through in a minute, and hopefully everything will be clear. So starting with the first sign or indicator, which is basically, if you remember, the last letter in the word has kasra. Like for example, Rabbi, as you can see in front of you, Alhamdulillahi Rabbi. Rabbi is a noun because it has a kasra. Also Maliki, also it is a noun because the last letter has a kasra. There are some exceptions to this rule. One of the main ones which you'll see most often in the Quran, inshallah, in the imperative form of the verb فعل الأمر, sometimes the last letter is with kasra. That is because it's originally with sukun, but after it there is another letter that comes with sukun. And as you know from the last episode, when there are two letters with sukun, Arabs don't like that. So they tend to do something. Last time, if you remember, we talked about ihdina sirat and we said they dropped the alif there. Here in this situation, they would most of the time put kasra on the first letter. We say, for example, qulillah, qulillah. Originally, it's qul. And then you have Allah starting with harf mushaddad, which is basically a sukun. So you have two sukuns, you can't deal with that, you can't pronounce it in Arabic, and therefore they say qulillah. Another exception, also with the imperative form, is if the word has ya at the end of it, like ihdi. The ya, ihdi, it is, because it is imperative form, it's omitted. That's another rule in grammar. We don't need to care about it now. And because it's originally yahdi in the present form, for example, yahdi, ihdi, the dal with kasra, and basically we just remove the ya. So this kasra here is not actually the last letter. The last letter is actually totally omitted. So this may be a bit confusing, because now how would we know that? Well, if you put the other indicators of the noun, you would notice that none of them would work. So for example, if you added al, alif wa lam, al ihdina, it doesn't work. Al ihdina, there is nothing like that. You can't find any word in the Quran or in anywhere in the Arabic language that is similar to that. You basically just wouldn't be able to add al to it. Also for the first exception, which was qulillah, you can't say al qulillah, al qul. You can't say al qul. There is nothing called al qul, right? So basically, it wouldn't accept any of the other signs. You would know then that this kasra is not the kasra of gar that we mean for the nouns. Okay, so the first indicator with for the noun is that it accepts, or it will have a kasra for gar, for jar, because that's what we are after. It's a haraka of i'rab, right? But for qulillah and ihdina, this kasra is not gar kasra. It's basically what we call kasra arida. Arida, it's not original. So it's temporary or precarious, is not original. The second sign is that the last letter in the word has tanween. Tanween could be, as you know, it could be tanween fatha or dhamma or kasra. Example of tanween fatha is like huda, as you can see in front of you. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى, hudan. You can see that there is a tanween indicator at the dal. So this means right away that this is a noun. With tanween dam, for example, you can see the word سواء. إن الذين كفروا سواء. Or the next line, ولهم عذاب عظيم. All these words are nouns because the last letter has tanween. And you can see that tanween dhamma may take different forms, depends on the letter that comes after it, and that's actually a tajweed issue which is out of the topic today. So if you see that indicator, this sign on any word, whether it is those two clear dhammas of tanween or the one dhamma and then that other like curve after it, both of these are basically tanween dham, and this is a clear indicator that this word is a noun. Also, وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. You can see the word ظُلُمَات at the last letter, which is a ta. There is a tanween kasra. Basically, this means that the word ظُلُمَات is a noun. Moving on to the third sign or indicator, which is basically the word would accept, or it is already begins with al, alif wa lam. And this is really straightforward. So for example, الصراط المستقيم. These two words there both starts with al, therefore they are nouns. Also in the second line, صراط الذين أنعمت. صراط, it doesn't begin with al, but you can add it to it. You can say al-sirat, as-sirat, exactly as what you said in the as-sirat al-mustaqim in the first line. So this is an important concept. When you're looking at a word, sometimes the word, like originally in the ayah, would have the indicators that we are talking about. Sometimes it won't. And then you'll have to add one of those signs or indicators and see whether it is basically workable, it accepts it, and the word provides the meaning or not. And luckily, that's not going to be like very frequent. Most of the time, much more frequently, the words in the Quran already provides you something that you would know. It either has al, it could have kasra, before it there is a fi or ala or any other of the huruf al-jar, and so on. Okay, so indicator number 4, which we already talked about, that before the word there is harf jar, like fi, ila, the ba, and so on. Let's have some examples. Well, I think the clearest example is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The word bism, you can see there is a ba at the beginning. This means the word ism is actually is a noun. And also you can see that it's with kasra because of the ba, because of the harf al-jar. That's what the harf al-jar does. It basically give kasra to the noun most of the times. Also fi dhulumat, you can see that the word dhulumat, there is a fi before it, and the word fi is harf jar, and because of that harf al-jar, the word dhulumat actually took kasra, and therefore it is a noun. Also ila shayatinihim, ila is harf jar. Harf jar means it makes gar or jar or gives kasra to the word that comes after it, and that's why you can see shayatini, ni, that noon is with kasra. That is the last letter in this word, because hum is basically just a pronoun, not originally in the word. Lastly but not least, the fifth sign or indicator is basically the word has a ya before it. Ya that we use to call someone, like Ya Ahmed, right? So let's take an example. So as you can see in front of you, Ya Yahya khudhi al-kitaba biquwwah. Ya Yahya. Yahya is a noun because there is ya before it. And if you can see, it is actually ya and there is a small alif. So it is ya Yahya. So in the end of this episode, we learned how to identify nouns in the Quran. Perhaps have a quick exercise and practice identifying nouns in Al-Fatiha. And next time, inshallah, we will talk about identifying verbs and harf. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.